Hello, Grace Community Church. Pastor Steve here, continuing our journey cover to cover. And today we're on June 6th, and we're looking at the book of Ecclesiastes, chapters 1 through chapter 6. Now, who wrote the book of Ecclesiastes? It says a king of Israel. Based on the timing and based on the descriptions, we're pretty confident it's Solomon. That being said, the book technically doesn't give a name. And in our book, it says the teacher. Some translations say the preacher. The Hebrew word is koheleth. And many times, if you're in scholastic environments, they will just say what Koheleth is saying here, just to kind of make it neutral. But what you have is somebody who has experienced a lot of life, apparently had a lot of money, and uses this experience, uses the wisdom he had to ponder some of life's deepest issues. And so what we observe are those conclusions. Sometimes he takes us to a high place, sometimes he takes us to a low place. The primary phrase that captures us all together is the phrase, under the sun, as we see things. And he lets you know when he's discouraged to the point that he wonders, is there really eternal life? I wonder. And then another point, he says, oh yes, most assuredly, there is. So let's look at a few of these things and see what we can gain. I'm wanting you, particularly if you're a thinker, a little bit philosophical, to allow the questions and the answers he comes up with to be something that challenge you. This is an example of a book, because it is poetry. You don't have to agree with everything that's going on, but it's giving us a general thrust, an idea of what we deal with in our life. So he devoted himself to discovery. Well, he wanted to see if pleasure is going to answer things, so he threw himself into pleasure. He wants to see if wisdom is going to do things, he throws himself into that. He reaches some conclusions. Here's one, the futility of pleasure. Was it pleasurable at the time? Yeah, it was. But at the end, what good did it really do? And he comes up with this phrase, which repeats all the way through, a chasing after the wind. Can you chase the wind? No, it's futility. And so that is a theme that is going to go. And he ponders and says, you know what? I've looked at very wise people, great people, they die. And so do the fools and the poor. They die too. He even ponders whether it's better to be dead than alive. But he reaches some interesting conclusions. Enjoy the life you have. Enjoy your job. Enjoy a good meal. Enjoy a good drink. And he's saying that, and I think there's wisdom there. You have life. Enjoy the life that God has given you. Not always dreaming for what might happen in the future or regretting everything that happened in the past, but enjoying this life you have now. And then he goes on with a very famous passage, probably arguably the most famous in this book, and that is from Ecclesiastes chapter 4. Has been turned into a song and made very famous by, I believe it was Bob Dylan who wrote the original song, but Peter, Paul, and Mary and others sang it, to everything turn, turn. There is a season for everything, a time to plant, a time to harvest, a time to be born, a time to die. Beautiful passage, worth pondering, and very true. Now he says some things which I think are very powerful. He says in chapter 3, verse 11, that God has placed eternity in our hearts. I believe that. There is a book by the name of a guy named Richardson, which the book is entitled Eternity in Their Hearts. And he's looking at how do you reach people in areas of the world. And he believes that God has created that God-shaped hole that Blaise Pascal once described as present in every single person. And this comes from this particular verse. But moving on just a few verses, he wonders, is there eternal life? I guess we don't know until we die. But then he goes in chapter 4, verse 9, this lovely passage, which I use for weddings all the time. Two are better than one. They have good return for their income. They keep warm together. They can defend each other. And then he says this, a three-strand cord is not easily broken. And I love this in a wedding ceremony, because if you are one cord and your spouse is the other cord, what is that third cord? And I believe it is the Lord. Two people drawn to the Lord together are bound in a very strong way. And then he wraps up with, enjoy your life work. As I was reading this, I was reminding myself of a very famous missionary, at least famous to me and people in preacher circles. His name is C.T. Studd. C.T. Studd. Interesting guy to look up in Wikipedia. He was a very successful cricket player. We're talking the turn of the century, 1900. But what happens, he has a calling to China. And he serves in China and begins really a missionary work there. Then he becomes a pastor in India and finally wraps up his life, even sees the death of his grandchild, in Africa. His passion was for people to know Jesus. This is what he says. Only one life will soon be past. Only what's done for Christ will last. At the end of the day, the preacher, Koheleth, raises some great questions. But I think C.T. Studd said it right. Only one life, and it's going to soon be past. He lived 70 years. Only what's done for Christ will last. Kind of why I do what I do. God bless you.